Great. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's session. Today we're going to be talking about governance models associated with innovation. We've got three great panelists with us today who are customers who've been successfully using ideas both internally within their companies as well as externally. So today they're going to be sharing some of their tips and best practices as well as some of the war stories they've experienced on their way to a successful implementation. So as for me, I'm Matt O'Connor, and so I'm an engagement manager with our consulting organization, and I've been with Salesforce for about the past 4.5 years. And in addition to my work as an engagement manager, I'm also our ideas lead for the organization, and I work with customers around the globe who are both customers and prospects as they plan out and execute their innovation initiatives. Well, before we get into the fun part of the presentation, our safe harbor slide. So you might have seen this before, and you might see it again here over the next day and a half, 2 days. So as you know, Salesforce is a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange with a ticker symbol of CRM. If you want more information about this or want to read the slide, you can go out to our public website and check it out. So our agenda is very straightforward today. I'm going to start us off with a bit of an overview of innovation and idea management and the processes associated with that and how to establish that. And then we're going to go right into our customer panel. And then at the end, we're going to have about a 20-minute period where we'll field questions from the audience. So as we're walking through our material today and having our discussion, keep in mind that you're going to have plenty of time to ask your questions. So just kind of be thinking of that as we go through the rest of the session. Now, before I jump into my part here, how many of you have already implemented Salesforce ideas, whether externally or internally? Okay, great, great. We've got a good number of people. Now, how many of the rest of you are actively looking at implementing in the next 3 to 6 months? Okay, great. I think we've got just about everybody. Is there anybody who has no idea what I'm talking about and is in the wrong session? Okay, all right. Some of my colleagues apparently are in the wrong session. So innovation is becoming more and more important today than it ever has been. The marketplace is getting ever more competitive. Obviously, we're all aware of the economic and financial challenges for our companies, for our customers. And so companies are really starting to look at innovation as an engine for not only staying competitive, but outpacing the competitors that you have in the marketplace. And so as such, we see a lot of our different customers exploring ideas in a whole variety of ways, whether it's internally with your employees, and that could be anything from knowledge sharing and best practice sharing across different regions or geographies or different departments, providing a platform and a forum for that, to sharing your product and service roadmap with customer-facing employees who might not have access to that, and getting their feedback and really including that in your product management lifecycle. So we see all sorts of interesting uses on the employee side, but we see that very same set of use cases also on the customer-facing side or externally. And you've probably seen a lot of different examples of some of the idea sites that are out there, Dell and Starbucks and so forth. And that becomes a very powerful tool for engaging customers, partners, and really essentially the marketplace in a conversation that can help enrich and deepen that relationship. Now, more than ever, that's really kind of a critical item to maintain the customers you have and attract new customers and really do more business and have a deeper relationship with your existing customer base. So there's a lot of different use cases, and we'll be discussing a bunch of those today. But one of the things that I see when I'm working with our customers and our prospects who are using ideas is there's one consistent challenge that kind of rises to the top in terms of organizations being successful with innovation. And that's really taking all the ideas that they're able to collect from the ideas, websites, and forums that they're creating and standing up, whether internally or externally, and really turning those into business value, really taking action on those different ideas that they've been collected, identifying the ones that are high value and high potential, and actually taking action. And that's really where you garner the business value from any sort of innovation activity or ideas site like Salesforce provides. So one of the key themes for today is really going to be addressing that challenge that essentially everyone's going to face in attempting to be successful with innovation. So here on the screen you see just a very simplified view of what I like to call an ideas management or an innovation management process. And this is really the secret to kind of unlocking that business value that the community is going to be creating for you. So if we just kind of walk through it, you'll see obviously the first piece is idea collection. Now, having worked with a lot of different customers, I'm a big believer in if you build it, they will come. So what I mean by that is if you market your site and do the correct communications around it, get people excited about it, and you've got the right sponsorship in place, you're going to get ideas. And that's pretty much going to be a guarantee if you do some of the right things to prepare, and we'll talk about some of that today. But the real trick is turning those ideas into the value, and that's kind of where this process comes in. So the next step in a typical process for idea management is triage. And so this is really going to involve your moderators, or as I like to say, ambassadors. And so these people are typically subject matter experts in different categories or different topics that people are providing ideas on. And they're going to use the votes and the comments as well as their subject matter expertise to identify what are essentially high potential ideas. And so they're going to promote those ideas into this process. And that's an ongoing thing that they need to be doing consistently in order to keep up with the new ideas that the community is generating. So now after that, typically an organization is going to want to do more analysis on an idea that's been provided by the community. So this could be doing ROI analysis. This could be really fleshing out and vetting the idea, making sure it does indeed have return if the company is looking to make an investment in that particular idea. And so that's really a critical process. And now every organization will do that slightly differently. Some will build out, robust business cases that really justify the investment. And some will have just a much smaller process where they think hard about what it's going to take to execute and what value that can bring the organization. So once the analysis has been completed, there needs to be a decision-making body to essentially determine, should we green light this idea? Should we move forward? Do we put it in kind of a holding pattern? We give it a yellow light? Or do we just say, you know what, this doesn't make sense for the organization at this time? And so that can take a couple different forms. Lots of times we see that that's an executive sponsor who's in that position of decision-making, or it can be a steering committee. So it really depends on what's right for your organization, but it's essential and critical that you have an organization or you have some sort of structure in place to actively decision these ideas. Because if you're not making a decision on these ideas, they're just sitting in the site and you're really not collecting that business value that, of course, you want to get from the initiative. So, and then the final step, and this is really where the innovation actually happens and you get your return and you get that business value that you're looking for, is decisioning. So that decision-making body, they of course need to be empowered with the authority to make decisions and to devote things like resources, devote things like funding in order to make those things happen. And then they also need to be accountable, or they at least need to have accountability for getting those things completed, because that's really where you're going to start seeing the business value from your ideas, your innovation activities. So, and all along the way, and one thing that's kind of not shown here is, all along the way, you want to be communicating your progress with this back to the community, because the community is very, very interested to know what you think of their wonderful idea, because whenever somebody contributes an idea, it's, of course, the best idea on the entire site. So you want to have a consistent flow of communication back to the community all along the way here. So today you're going to hear our panelists talk about how they have designed and defined their idea management process, and each of them have done it slightly differently. So there's really no one-size-fits-all, but you'll hear a couple of different key themes as they're discussing what they've done. And the first one is really that obviously they have a clearly defined process and that they've automated it. So you're going to hear how they've automated this process for idea management within the application using the Salesforce platform that probably many of you already have a lot of experience with. And that's been very powerful for them because they keep that whole entire process closed loop all the way through within one application. So all those great dashboards and reports are really measuring and evaluating the entire process and giving visibility to it. So that's really critical. The next thing that you'll kind of hear in terms of themes is, that the process needs to be in place, and it doesn't matter if it's simple or complex. So you'll hear some varying degrees of complexity up here, but just keep in mind that it needs to be right for your organization and capture the key decision-making criteria that you need in order to move ideas through this process. The third item here is transparency. So I talked about it a little bit earlier with communication, but it's absolutely critical that the community knows what's going on with those ideas. Because initially with every single idea's implementation, there's going to be a tremendous influx of ideas. Everybody's very excited about the opportunity to share their voice. Typically organizations haven't had great outlets like an ideas platform for sharing. So you're going to see a tremendous amount of ideas. And they're going to want to know what the company is actually doing with those. So that's really where transparency is really critical. Now, you need to have this transparency not just with the community, but also with your internal stakeholders. So who are the key constituents that are interested and have a vested interest in demonstrating value for this ideas initiative? That could be, business stakeholders, IT stakeholders, that could be executive sponsors, steering committees, but really making sure you're communicating to them on a frequent basis, demonstrating progress, showing the wins that you've had, whatever ideas you've been able to implement, characterizing the value that those have brought the organization. That's also critical in terms of transparency and communication. So you'll hear more about that today. And then the last one is, just kind of basic. We all know this about every single initiative. You need to have an executive sponsor in place or some level of sponsorship. And it's especially critical here because a key part of this process is obviously making that decision to do something. And many times that's going to require some level of resourcing or some level of funding. So you really need an engaged sponsor who has that wherewithal, has essentially the authority to take action. Because sometimes you'll see a structure that gets set up, but there's really not a decision maker with authority to take action. And then if that's the case, obviously you're leaving all that business value that could be there on the table in the form of unrealized ideas, unacted upon ideas. And then, of course, the impact on the community is not terribly great. They become a little disinterested if they're not showing that you're constantly demonstrating progress. So that basically just provides an overview of one of the key themes for today, which is really the importance of having that idea management process in place and having that governance structure. So now we're going to actually move on to the fun part, which is our customer panel discussion. And so I'll ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Corey here to my right. And Corey, if you just want to give an introduction for yourself and also talk about how you're using ideas.
Hello, my name is Corey Cochran. I'm with American Century Investments. We are an investment management firm that's provided investment vehicles for over 50 years. We implemented ideas along with 2 AppExchange applications to manage the overall flow for ideas. So far, year to date, we've been able to deliver over 90 ideas. A lot of the same attributes that Matt started to talk to has been in the middle of the process. And we've used that to deliver those 90 ideas, and we have another 200 upcoming that we're looking to schedule.
Hey, Corey, who are your ideas users? Who are the people using ideas?
So we implemented ideas internally only. We have all of our sales, service, and marketing folks all on ideas. So we have a nice, and we even have some of our web folks on there as well. So our spread for ideas is very, very wide. We also have ideas set up to where it's not just changes that we want to implement inside Salesforce, but they could be web changes, they could be phone changes, any technology change that would help the sales or service or marketing organization. There's an outlet there for them to be able to submit an idea and drive that through to completion.
Great, great. And next we've got Holly Tuccio from Dell.
Hi, I'm Holly Tuccio. I'm an IT project manager, so I'm probably a little bit different side of the house in that regard. And we've actually been using ideas since February of 2007. We implemented it with IdeaStorm, which was our first external instance, and then we did Employee Storm shortly thereafter, that summer, and that's for all 80,000 plus users of Dell. We also, whenever Perot Systems came on board a couple weeks back, they were able to use Employee Storm immediately. It's part of our DNA is to be able to open that feedback and for everybody to have a space at the table to make anything better. We've also had the wonderful opportunity to work with UT and do a Dell Social Innovation and co-sponsor that. We have Premier Storm, Account Storm. We also did a healthcare storm that we've actually rolled back out. So we've had successes, and we have some things that we've learned too. So both sides of that fence. Looking forward to sharing those with you.
Great, great. Thanks, Holly. And next, all the way from Paris, France, is Gregory Van de Putte.
So, hi, I'm Gregory Van de Putte. I'm in charge of the CRM for Areva T&D. So Areva T&D is one of the main leaders in transmission and distribution of energy. So we have implemented Salesforce since 2006 under 3,000 users at international level. And today we have implemented IDs since 6 months because we think that the functionalities that the central team is implemented into Salesforce do not correspond to field needs. So in order to better answer to the real business issue, we have implemented IDs so that now I would say the application better correspond to the business need.
Great, great. So at this point, we'll start our moderated discussion, and I want to start off with a question that I get all the time as I'm meeting with prospects and customers who are looking to expand their use of ideas, and that's how do I prepare? What are some of the key steps I need to do to prepare to be successful with that initial launch? Corey, you want to take a crack?
Sure. And one of the first key things is going to be communication. So when you communicate ideas out, a lot of the questions that you're going to get is, how is this important to me? When I submit something, what's going to happen? Where's it going to go? So all of us have started to talk to the process that we've put in place behind ideas. So being able to communicate what that process looks like. As I illustrated, we have it all the way from our service reps, our sales reps, marketing, all of our VPs, directors, they all can see ideas. So everyone's going to have a different view of what they're after. So being able to communicate exactly what it's going to mean to that person becomes very, very important to do up front.
Holly, what do you think?
Well, you know, whenever we first rolled out IdeaStorm, it was an initiative from Michael. So, you know, we're going to launch it and let's go. And so it wasn't like we had this wonderful project cycle to go through where we got governance in place and we got our communication. You know, it was, let's all hurry up and put it together. And Michael's going to talk with Steve Jobs, so it's going to be big. So what we found was that, yes, you do build it, and yes, they do come. And realistically, I find that people really own those ideas. They have no problem seeing their value in it. They love to see how the community interacts with that idea. They start out chatting between each other, internally as well as externally. So I find that there hasn't been the real need to let it be known, be a big advertising whenever we post it externally. If you seed it, believe me, it organically grows. So I feel that it's just something that launches and it's well placed on its own. We're also seeing for ourselves, like whenever you look at Premier Storm or Account Storm, we're finding that ideas are generated out of need, just like your sales reps to the field. So let's create channels for those people to have that unique idea and not just be lost in the big crowd. That's where we're really seeing some real innovations. I didn't mention, but we have over 400 ideas that have been implemented, about 200 internally and about 200 externally. And one of my favorite ones is a backlit keyboard, because on my Dell E6500, man, I lay in bed and I type, and it's great. And I'm thinking, thank God this guy got it on the roadmap, because it's great.
Okay. Regarding Areva, the starting of IDs was a little bit slow at the beginning because we don't really communicate the benefits of IDs that will bring to the users. So really, so we have reinforced it. We have put in place a communication plans to see what will be the benefits for the champions to use IDs on a daily basis. And one of the key messages is that by implementing IDs in our company, now the users can become actors really of the roadmap regarding the CRM. So this is really key. And also we have communicated on the fact that with IDs now the implementation time for change requests has been decreased by 2. So now we are really reactive and flexible, and this is really key for the business. The business always asks for flexibility and agility, and this is something key that we have with IDs now.
Great, great. So now I know, because I know your guys' stories very well, that each of you has kind of had a little bit of a different launch strategy. And one of the things that the customers are always looking to better understand is, well, when we get started, should we roll out to everybody, a subset? How should we get started? And so now, Holly, maybe you can tell us kind of how Dell got started. And then Gregory, I know you guys took a slightly different approach.
Again, you know, it's a Michael initiative, big bang. So no small launch, no, oh, we're going to, you know, just release this to a few hundred people and then get their feedback. So IdeaStorm launched, and it was amazing. We had over 20,000 participation in the first week, actually register and start to put in ideas and start voting. So we're pretty much a big splash. We always go for the big splash.
So now I just have kind of a follow-up question because I'm always interested in this. Now, what's your impression of starting externally with a big, huge splash versus potentially starting internally with your employees? Did you give that any consideration? Or?
Well, I think what we first saw with external customers were the Linux folks. You know, they sat on the site. They had a reason to be there. They had something they wanted. And you know what? You can get, on most new systems, Ubuntu installed as your operating system. So we did listen to them, and we did change. So you see a lot of pin-up demand, I think, initially whenever you launch sites. You know, there's this big spike of, oh, even internally, you know, there's a channel for me to voice my ideas or voice a possibility of a complaint. And so sometimes you'll take that conversation and you'll actually take it offline. You'll say, hey, this looks like a complaint. How can we help you? And I had to take, you know, and say how good our moderators are, how well they've done, and how well they take care of those one-on-ones and makes a positive back to the community. So, you know, hats off to the moderators. They have done an awesome job.
Yes, for us, we have a different approach regarding the deployment of IDs. Indeed, since 3 years, we have implemented a lot of functionalities into the CRM, such as the forecasting, the product pre-qualification, the management of agreement, and so on. And today, the users are asking for stabilization and no more, I will say, new functionalities. So we have implemented IDs under a pilot, that is to say 100 persons that has been selected. And the objective of this pilot were first to validate the process, because behind every functionalities there is a process. So with this pilot phase, we have validated the role of the moderators, the process step, and also all the communication that is necessary around IDs to communicate on this. We have very good feedback regarding this pilot, so the next step for us will be to deploy IDs under 3,000 users, so it will come next year, I would say.
Great, great. So you can see two different approaches there. One's more of a big bang strategy, which I think makes a lot of sense externally because you definitely do want that critical mass. Now internally you might start a little bit slower and do a pilot, kind of like Areva's done, build some success, establish your processes, and then roll out more broadly. So now kind of to the meat of one of our themes here. So you get all these great ideas, you've done the communication, the marketing, you've got the right sponsorship. What do you do with the ideas once you get them? What's your process for managing those ideas?
Well, I'll take that one. What we did, I'm a big fan of taking advantage of whatever's already out there, something someone else has done. So we downloaded an AppExchange application, and the one I downloaded was called Product Management, but any one of the project managements or you know, project overview ones, those would all work as well. And then really what I did is renamed it to where it fit inside the company structure, the things that they're looking for, and just attached ideas to the release management. And so we built a process around it that anyone can submit ideas, and we got a pretty big flood of ideas, especially up front as we started going. And we will comb through those once a week. The ones that are really easy to do, my team's responsible for the decision making, so that the slide Matt had up there before. We'll grab the ones that we can approve right away. We'll drop them in the roadmap, and we'll deliver them as a part of that monthly release. And then any of the ones that we need to go get additional resources or dollars for, that process allows me to send the request off to the appropriate team, so I could send it to the web team or send it to the IT team, have them estimate it. They can come back with estimates, and then I can use that to make decisions on what's going to happen next. I combine that with a second AppExchange application, which is a timeline app, and I overlay that on top of the product management so I can see here's all my approved items, and here's where they're at in the list, and I can take a look across the calendar what's going to be deployed and when.
Great, great.
Well, for Dell, we launched this and we've got all these ideas, and we're like,
It is a lot up front.
oh, maybe we should have done something. So we worked with our Salesforce professional services, and we built on the Salesforce platform a bridge solution. And the bridge solution is really nice. It takes in ideas. It allows the moderator to put it to a segment. That segment has the ability to say, is it actionable or not? Yes, it is. Is it something that's already on our roadmap? Are we going to do this? Is it something that we can add to the roadmap? Is it something that we've already done? So that they can respond. And the wonderful thing about being on Salesforce, you get all those triggers that you can build in so that everybody gets those nice notifications, hey, it's time for you to act. And again, this goes to executive sponsorship. Michael has access to this dashboard. So trust me, things move. So it really is very helpful for us. But yes, that's what we did to help manage, and then added more.
Great, great.
And then for Arriva, regarding IDs, we have make a full process with IDs that come from the field and the change request, that is to say the new functionalities that will be implemented. So all these two are fully integrated. So we have IDs, so where the users can provide some feedback, they can make some votes, they can highlight some key issues by showing some real example. So this is the first thing. So based on this, on a monthly basis, we are reviewing all the IDs with a specific instance, which is the change request control board. So we assessing all the IDs through several criteria: the business value, the cost, the priority, the criticity, and so on. And based on this, we integrate all these IDs either in a change request. And so we have implement a custom object, which is the change request tab, where we can highlight some functional impact, business impact, all the communication plan, and so on. And when an ID is either will be implemented or not, there is automatic workflow that is directly sent to the users to provide them some feedback, so that they can see now, the users can clearly see when the ideas will be implemented. This is really key. Or if it's not implemented, why? Because for a user, it's really important to have an answer. If you don't have an answer, either positive or negative, he will get frustrated, I would say. So this is our key points to review the IDs, then score them, and then after provide immediate feedback to the users.
I really want to underscore that too, because our team does the Ideas and Actions blog. And so it's very important to, I want to say communicate back to the user where your idea is in the process, and closing that loop of communication. I really want to underscore that. That's so important to the community.
Yeah, that's the transparency that we've been talking about. That's it's critical to the community continuing to stay engaged, is knowing what the organization is doing with those ideas that people care a lot about. So now, not every project can go perfect, and you can learn some things. So what have been some of the things that you guys have kind of learned along the way that others might be able to benefit from?
Well, for us, very similar to your rollout where Michael said, just go do it. That actually started with us too. Our SVP said, hey, just turn it on. Just turn it on. So that's what they did. We could communicate it out. But at the time, we didn't have, we were able to communicate it, but we didn't have the structure set up that allowed the ongoing communication and to allow the workflow, and the person at the time running it didn't have the authority to act upon those decisions. So that's now in place. Ideally, that would have been ready to go when we launched Ideas. So just turning it on is great, but what happens is you get all these questions. Well, I submitted it. Where are you at? What are you doing? So
yeah. So governance, and process and training. Because you need to know what you're doing, how you're going to deal with these ideas. Make sure that you've got the process in place to make sure it follows through the cycle, and then make sure whoever's going to be doing the moderation is really well trained, because those moderators are your touch points, and they really are the people that keep people engaged, and their finesse is key. So those are the 3 points I'd take.
So Holly, expand on that. What type of training would you give the moderator?
Well, I think, the moderator sets a tone. There's a lot of ways you can say something, right? And, it's the way you say it that you actually communicate it across, so that if that person's upset or maybe they've sort of like, they're defending their idea a little bit much. Maybe there's a way to say, it's great to get feedback, instead of, you're being defensive. It's really their touch point and the way they communicate it to those users, because there is a lot of ownership whenever it comes to an idea. People really love their ideas and they really own it. So very, very personal. So that training for that moderator to have that velvet glove is really key.
Great. Yep. Just to complete what you say, I fully agree with you regarding the role of the moderator. It's something key, and we have a specific person which is dedicated to the IDs, I will say. Also, we have an issue when we start IDs. The starting was a little bit slow because we don't really communicate on how IDs can benefit to the person. So this is something key that we have reinforced during the last months. And also to highlight this and to show the benefits, we have created a Champions newsletter when we have a specific corner, which is the Ideas Corner, when the users can see where my idea stand, when it will be implemented, what are the most contributors regarding ideas and so on. So we need also to promote the role of the person that are using ideas. This is something key, as well as using Salesforce. It's just a change, but we need also to promote those persons and to highlight the fact that they are using it on a daily basis. And the role of the moderator is key to answer on a regular basis to all the comments that he gathers through ideas. Because with ideas, as of today, we have more than 1,000 comments, and this is something key to ask sometimes more details or provide feedback and so on. So the communication for me is really key.
Great. So you've launched now, and you've kind of shared a little bit about what type of preparations required, some of the things you've learned. But ongoing, how do you keep the community engaged, coming back, participating, and sharing good ideas?
Well, we have a new feature that we're going to be releasing in December 14th right now. I'm going to put everybody on the spot on the date. It's called Ideas Sessions. It's going to be like a focus group. We're actually going to ask a question and give an idea to the community and let them start to participate about that idea, make suggestions about it. And as we all know, we've seen ideas, what if we did this, from your own teams. And as everybody contributes to it, the idea gets better. We all stand together and get better together as we contribute. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about our diversity. So that's what we're going to be doing. We'll be having the ability to do up to 3 sessions, and you can review these sessions in history and that kind of thing. So we're really excited about this new feature that we'll be releasing in December. There's 2 other things that we're going to do that are foundational. As an IT project manager, I'm about foundation. One is our single sign-on. Right now, since it is on Salesforce, it's not tied to your Dell My account. We'll be making those changes. That's one of the things that is going in our roadmap next year, is so that sign-on is tied to your My account. I know what you purchase, and I know what you contribute on IdeaStorm. The other piece is we're actually going to index IdeaStorm on FAST, which is the Dell.com search engine. So that's a beautiful thing in some regards. So if I want to search Dell.com and I say green, I can get ideas, I can get things from the community, I can get products, I can search and have that all in one holistic place. And so that's why I say those are 2 foundational things that we're really looking to do. But the feature and the enhancement, keeping the community engaged, I think that's really the exciting point. So look for our idea sessions in December, a little bit of early Christmas.
Shameless plug for Dell. So what do you guys think about other ways to keep the community engaged and coming back?
For us, it's just one word: deliver. When we did ours, just plan on it, right? When you go to roll out ideas, just know that you're going to dedicate some time to just delivering some of the things they asked for. When we first got started, I just grabbed the first couple that were out there and just made sure that we found a way to get those. And then over time, now we're at 90. We average just about 30 a quarter. And we continue to deliver the things that they ask for. When you continue to do that, that works well because the engagement stays there. And then similar to what you're talking about, I send out a quarterly newsletter. And in there, I kind of put a shameless plug. I think last quarter, unannounced name, had the most voted on idea ever in our history. And they loved it, right? You walked out on the Salesforce. The Salesforce, it wasn't even 30 minutes later, and I could hear them talking about it. And so they wanted to make sure that next time that they had the most voted on idea. So as long as you have the structure set up and you have a little bit of time, even the really small things, it's amazing what really annoys the sales users. If you can find a way to unencumber them from the tool, they'll tell you. They'll let you know what they need out of their way. Set aside a little bit of time and deliver what they want, and they'll keep coming back.
I fully agree with you, and the key thing is the delivery. As you said before, Matt, is the ideas in action. Mm-hmm. And if a person put an ideas and there is nothing, there will be no interest regarding this. So for us, in parallel of the newsletter, and also we animate on a monthly basis all our champions community with ideas dashboard and so on. We have implemented some KPIs that we deliver that whole Areva regarding the average implementation time regarding an ideas. And now the person can really see that we have divided by 2 the time that is necessary to implement a change request, so that the person see that we are more reactive, more flexible, that we can really address their need on a daily basis. So this is something key, the delivery. I fully agree with you.
Yeah. To me, that's a huge best practice, is just demonstrating in a very visible way what you're doing with those ideas. I mean, that just keeps them coming back for more. And that's exactly what you want. That's kind of the virtuous cycle that gets created. So another area, just before we dive into kind of the open Q&A, is moderation. We've talked about it a little bit. It's probably one of the most common questions I get is, well, how many moderators do I need? How active do they need to be? What do they need to be doing? And Gregor, you shared a little bit about that.
So we have a person that is in charge of to moderate the ideas, but this person is also in charge of the champions community. So we have 100 person, and we have one dedicated person to animate the champions community and also to animate ideas. So it's not, I would say, a lot of time. It's just to be reactive, to answer at the right moment with the right answer to the person. Make sure that the voice of the field, I would say, is represented at central level. So it's for us, is one person who is in charge of the whole community. So not a lot.
So for us, we have 2 dedicated headcount for the external and all of the external pieces, and probably about 1.5 headcount for the internal. So that's really our headcount.
And so what do they do? I mean, what's kind of the moderator tasked with?
Moderators tasked for, 1, moderating the site, and 2, also implementing into the bridge solution. So they're the ones that move those ideas over and say, let me assign it to the right segment. Is this marketing? Is this product group? Is this laptops? Where am I going in here so that it gets routed into the right place? So initially, that's their roles.
And to me, that's a really key thing that Holly just kind of identified there, which is not only are they the interface to the community, of course, but they also are responsible for driving that process on the back end, because that process definitely needs ownership in order to be successful. So Corey, how are you guys staffing your idea site?
Well, we're in the middle of changing that, actually. It used to just be me, and I'll tell you. So I'm famous for my Sunday emails to my team, right? Because I'd be going through ideas, and they just, here's 3 for one guy, 3 for another, right? So that we have probably on average probably a quarter or a half of an FTE on a yearly basis to get this done. Their task is to go through all the ideas on at least once a week. And we go through all of them, which is time-consuming, make sure there's any new comments, anything that's new that's out there. And then they're also tasked with, I provide my team with the authority to go ahead and start some of the projects, at least the analysis part. And so they're responsible for attaching that idea to a release and starting to walk it through based on the priorities of the business. Okay. So they kind of have both roles there.
Great, great. So at this point, what I want to do is open it up to the audience. So you guys have had a chance to hear a lot of what their experience has been and some of the best practices and some of the things they've learned. But we want to hear from you guys and hear your questions, and you can address them to the panel, to myself, or to anyone in particular here. But I would just ask that you kind of stand up and articulate so that we can hear you. And I'll repeat all the questions. So, there's a question right here. So let me just, okay, we'll just do one. Okay, so the first question there, just to make sure everybody heard, was how did you manage the expectations of the business so that they understand they are going to have to say no to some of the questions? And then the second follow-up was just, did you seed the site with any ideas upon launch? And who wants to take those?
So the first one, I will say, what I share with my team is it's okay to say no. Nobody really likes it, but there's an art to it, kind of what we were talking about earlier. But it is okay to say no. The trick to it is not that you're saying no, because most of the time it's rare that there's something my team couldn't technically deliver on. But what we try to do is show transparency in, here's all the other ideas that are out here, and the ones we're currently working on now, here's what you get out of it. And what ends up happening as a result when you do it that way is most people, by the time you give them all those facts, they go, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. And in their own mind, they also make the decision with you. And so they can see that their idea, while important and while they're typically really passionate about it, they can see how the other ideas that are in there are going to provide value to the business. Maybe it's different business units, but it's still going to be able to provide a lot of value. So that's how we handled that.
For us, regarding to say no, it's not a problem to say no to a user. It's to say why. This is the key thing. If you don't explain why you say no, the person cannot understand and can be frustrated. So regarding us, regarding the implementation of a new ideas, we have defined, I will say, a scoring. So we have identified key things. What is the added value? What is the cost? What is the mandate that is necessary? Do we have to review all the sales process? Is it benefits to one person or a group of persons and so on? So we have, I would say, agreed with all criteria, and based on these criteria, there is a scoring. And then we provide the scoring to the users and provide the comments from the business process owner, so the person that are in charge of the process inside our company, and we explain it, and so that there is no problem. Sometimes we say no, but we say, okay, no for the time being, we will postpone it for another release because it's part of the global roadmap of the CRM. For example, as of today, we have some person that are asking for new workflows and so on. And for the time being, we say no, we will review this at the end of 2010 because we will have a new release that will take into account all the rationalization and simplification of the application and so on. So behind every answer, there is a reason. And this is the most important thing, is to explain the why.
So, Greg, do you let them influence the scoring? So,
yes.
I can imagine rolling that out.
Yes,
They're going to say, the scores
the problem we face at the beginning is that most of the decisions were taken by a person from the central team. So those persons are really far away from the business. It has been 20 years that they are in their office, and most of the time they don't really know now what is the business. So, as I said, we are in democracy, and with ideas, there is an opportunity for the person to become a really actor of the roadmap, and by voting, they can highlight the fact that there is some key issues. And now this is, I will say, another power from the business process owner. So there is really the voice of the field that is represented in our instance, and this is something key. And most of the time, we say no to the business process owner to say the field wants this, so please implement this. This is the thing.
Okay, and there was a quick follow-up there about seeding the site upon launch. Did you guys add ideas prior to rolling out?
We don't generally at all. If you build it, they will come. They will. So no problem there.
Especially if you deliver the first one or two, once people find out that their ideas, there's a method for them to be heard, even if it's just the first one or two, all of a sudden you're going to get a flood.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll add my 2 cents to this one, actually, and I'll kind of disagree with our esteemed panelists, but I do recommend seeding ideas, and the reason, it's a couple of reasons, is first thing, when people log in the first time, you want them to see something. So you just want there to be some ideas out there. The other key element is how you add those seed ideas gives people a model or an example to follow, because this might be the first time they've ever contributed to an idea site like this, collaborative innovation. You want to give them a model, and it's a good model for how to participate, a really thoughtful idea, well articulated, because then they'll say, oh, okay, here's what my idea should be like. So I would say take advantage of that opportunity to really give them a sense for the type of feedback you're looking for. So, question here?
Were any of your organizations able to identify any economic value to sites other, such as increased revenues or taking costs out of the business? Something that was quantifiable that says, gee, we saw an uptick in this, or we took cost out of the business?
Yes, we have implemented IDs, but also we have implemented the change request tab or object, where we identify some key criteria, and we identify also the cost of implementing an IDs. So each time before making a decision, we are looking from our KPIs. Today we have a key objective for Areva, which is to follow the whole market in order to anticipate it and better address it. So every functionalities or new functionalities that we implemented needs to be linked to the objective of the company. So this is something key, really not to implement the functionalities but really to implement the functionalities that will generate, that will contribute either to the objective of the company or that will generate, we'll say, more business.
So for Dell on the external side, we constantly monitor and do metrics on ideas as well as community. So they actually have the numbers that convert to sales from having visited a site, that kind of thing.
To do, but
yes.
There's got to be a number
And
out
they
there.
they have a window of time from when whenever you've gone to community and checked in, or been to a site that they have that conversion model. And that's why I want single sign-on too.
Okay, there's a question in front here.
The role of the voting, it sounds like you want to give attention to every idea, but are you requiring some threshold to be passed before you actually do give them feedback on an idea? I mean, if they have 10 points for votes, do you pay attention to that?
So I'll take that, because we get that question a lot. No, I don't have a threshold. And the reason is sometimes, especially we monitor it once a week, the voting, what you'll find is that the people who want their idea to be the best doesn't necessarily mean the idea is the best. It means they got a whole bunch of buddies that are sitting next to them, right? So you can cut and paste the link out of there, send it in an email. So there are ideas that we've implemented with only 10 points over some that we have sitting there with 180 or 190. So we're able, some of them are pretty simple. You're able to take a look at it. It could either be a 3-minute or a 5-minute change, or it could be something that has that clearly stands out in terms of value, and you're able to go knock that off the list. And
can that cause dissension, though, if somebody rallied support at 200 points or 200 votes?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And you ignore that idea because it's not necessarily
right. So again, this is back to the point we talked about earlier, was sometimes it's okay to say no. And so, again, we attach it to the product management, which is going to show where things are at and the value that we're trying to attach to some of them. So that's something that's going to be key to communicate out is just because it has a whole bunch of points doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing to do for the company. Some of these, they could have a ton of points, but it could be really expensive to implement. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's kind of where you're at.
Very true.
No, that's true. I guess what I'm trying to grasp is the relevance then of the voting, because in the discussions that I've heard today, it doesn't sound like the voting really matters.
Well, it does. So it's a great question. We get the same thing. We get this a ton in our organization. The way I use it is there are things that become very clear that are thorns in the side for part of the users. And the trick for my part is you can look at it, and if someone submits an idea, at least for us, you know, it's right now about 350 people. So I can kind of tell who's submitting what, and you start to get to the point where you can see, like if this one, I know if this one guy submits it, it's going to have 180 points by the end of the week. I just know. But when I look at his idea, I actually look to see, are there people in other areas of the business who picked up on this? And if I can deliver one thing that impacts, you know, small business retirement plus sales plus brokerage, well, you know, so those are the things you look for. I look more for the amount of comments, the value of the comments, and then what different areas of the business also voted on it. Less than the point.
You know, and I just wanted to add a thought.
The number of votes, I will say, is one indicator. It's not the only one. It's one indicator that will contribute to the decision-making process, I will say. It's also, you said at the beginning, are you looking for ideas where there is only 10 points and so on? Yes, we are looking because sometimes we can regroup ideas to build one functionality. Right. For example, I have a user that say, I want to review my visibility. Another one say, I want to improve other things. And most of the time, you see that you can regroup some ideas in order to build one functionality. So that is important to have a regular screening of all your database, and also to take ideas as the criteria, the voting as the criteria. It's not the only one, but it's one of the criteria that will be taken for.
Yeah, and the way you avoid the dissension is, you know, there are multiple criteria. You help the community understand that and be transparent about voting is important, but it's a data point that we consider when evaluating the idea. So, question here.
Yeah, this question is for Holly.
Yeah.
For externally generated ideas, what's the process for transferring ownership of that idea from the person to the corporation so that there are no intellectual property?
It's part of our statement, a policy statement on the bottom of the site. So the terms and conditions of the site are there whenever you accept and sign in. So that terms and conditions is there immediately. So part of your acceptance criteria of becoming a member of the community and actually contributing your idea.
Yeah.
So those are, you know, sort of like the safe harbor, it's out there.
Yeah, and many external sites will be implemented. Your registration process includes acceptance of terms and conditions. So,
Yep.
And you can see examples out there of legalese.
We had the same thing for the internal, right? So again, yeah.
Was there a question over here?
Do you make it incumbent upon your moderators to be the subject matter experts, or do you have some type of a workflow built in where you can pass off the responsibility to a subject matter expert, let them make a decision before determining whether or not that's something that would even be implemented?
Absolutely. As part of our process on the bridge solution is that the moderators puts it to the right segment, and then the segment then takes that and says, let's evaluate this. Is it actionable or not? Yes or no? And then they go through the process. Is it already a part of our roadmap? Yep, it is. That's our feedback. No, it's not. Let's consider it. Would it make the product too expensive? You know, then they go through their own set of criteria, and then they communicate that back. So again, it's not the moderator's job to do the initial analysis. It's the moderator's job to, I want to say, be a good traffic cop.
Yeah.
You know, we also use the statuses associated with ideas. So our statuses are submitted, it defaults to that, and then the next one's under review. So in that instance, while me and my team have a relatively high degree of confidence on most of the ideas, there are some that we may need to send to the web team or to the IT team. And so we'd put it in under review status, attach it to one of the requests, send it off to them and say, hey, what do you think? So.
Okay. Question back here.
You tell them it's not the roadmap, you give them that communication. Do you also then tell them when it's finally launched specifically, or are they just part of the general communication?
Absolutely. We tell them when it's launched. There's an idea that's been implemented. So that it's actually tagged on the site. You can tell the difference on the, and then we let them know it's in action. So ideas and actions, we have that tab, and we constantly are updating that as well.
So how many times are they getting a communication
From us directly or to the site?
the person who submitted the idea? How many touch points back to them from this?
Well, they can actually take activity off of their feed. A lot of times they've got an RSS already attached to any time there's any action. There's a comment, Zoom, I'm already on it. So that's generally what we've seen.
I would say for us it's a minimum of 2. So when it hits the accepted stage, we'll let you know, and then the delivered stage. But on the latter part of it, typically we try to involve that person actually in the project if applicable. And so my designers will go through and design a solution and then try and find some time with them and say, here's a preview. Is this what you meant? And so when you do that, letting them know that it's accepted is really the more important than it's been delivered, because they probably already know. Or when it comes out in training, every idea that we have, we drop in as a part of the training document. So they're going to know that was a part of it.
So I've got a question for you then. In that regard, are you using your idea people to be almost your requirements gathering, or you let them in into a sandbox or a UAT environment to review that build? Or
the people submitting or the designers? The
person that submitted the idea, and you said you go and you have your designers go and work it. So are they coming back to a sandbox or a UAT environment to actually become sort of, I wanted to say, your BA or requirements person?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really
it's
nice.
the same for us also.
Oh, yeah.
The person who asks for an ideas, define after all the specification and work with the project team to define really the specification, validate the layout, if it's the rebuild of the layout, validate everything, make the test, so that after it's we make sure that what he wants we have implemented, and also it's something key to make sure that the business has the ownership on the application, and to make sure that every person can become part or an actor of the application.
So have you guys ever seen any missed workflows that way? Because if you're just talking to one person and you're gathering them as the BA or business analyst there, do you see any missed workflows? Have you had to go back and rework an idea that you've implemented that way?
So 2 things.
Sorry.
So yeah, well, yes, we have. First of all, it's never one person.
Okay.
Right. So we try to make sure that the person on the idea is involved on various levels, but it's rare that they're the only one. Mm-hmm. The BAs all actually report up to me, mm-hmm. and so it's my BAs, and then they'll go grab whoever submitted the idea or someone from that team or area and have them review it. It's also one of those. I've been doing this for a long time. Until people see it, right, they can try and describe it all they want in text, but until they see it, they're going to go, nope, that's not what we want. So even if it's just a complete mock-up that has nothing behind it, right, with Salesforce it's easy, right? If you want to throw up a new screen with 5, 10 fields, what to do? Take 10 minutes? I mean, it doesn't take hardly any time. So even if it's fake, we'll do that, and then we'll either bring them into one of the BA's offices, or we'll have them log in the sandbox and say, is this what you're after?
Okay.
Probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. Did any of you deploy ideas at the same time you were rolling out Salesforce for your sales, service, or marketing group to capture feedback at the same time they were going through their learning curve? I'm trying to balance if that's a good idea or not.
We did not. And we did not, but what we did find is we did roll it out a couple months later, and you get feedback on break fix, broken things, and that's not necessarily what you're after. We have a different avenue to resolve issues, because if it's truly an issue, if it's truly broken, I'm not going to wait through that whole process. Mm-hmm. I don't have this. I have less of a governance process on broken items. And so we do try to weed those out and then send them through the other process.
And I've got a perspective on that one. So what I would recommend is you kind of delay the ideas rollout for at least a couple weeks, typically 2 to 4 weeks. The reason is people just starting to use the app, they're going to have all these questions. Where do I find my data? How do I do this? Those aren't really ideas. Those are customer support kinds of questions. So you give them a little time to get used to the application, and then you introduce that concept. Would be my recommendation. Shortly thereafter, yeah, because you do want to ride the momentum of a launch, and this becomes kind of a follow-on. Hey, we're adding this. Your opinion matters, etc. So
at least a month.
One more question, Miss.
Countries now, go from getting used as just log cases and those escalating at country and then up to global. Does anybody use case with ideas, or do you route a case to an idea? I'm just quite interested to see if you made that leap.
We do. We use cases, but we don't actually attach to the idea. We're working on a project now to attach the case actually back to the process we use. So the governance process that we have set up, on my release management, I can attach ideas, I can attach cases, and a variety of any of my ROI docs. So I could actually go there and have a nice full picture of here's all the problems we're solving, here's all the ideas we're solving, and it really kind of builds the business case for you. So I didn't attach ideas to cases directly, but I attached them back to the process that allows me to resolve both issues and suggestions, ideas. Does that answer your question? Sorry? No. See, we use ideas really just for ideas. And sometimes there will be cases that are either associated with an internal problem or a customer problem. And so it's not really a suggestion, but it could be something that is they deem as broken. It might not really be broken, but we'll have the case, and so we'll go ahead and attach the case at the same time, just so we don't lose the documentation.
Well, and you know what, I'm happy to talk to you about that afterwards. So I do want to take a moment to thank our panelists for some great content today and some great discussions. So for all of our panelists, thank you. And the four of us will be available after the session until the next session starts. So if you have any additional questions we weren't able to get to, feel free to come up. And of course, thank you for your time. I think I have some housekeeping. Complete the online survey. It's important. And then our sponsor. So thank you, everybody for your time, and best of luck with your ideas and initiatives.
Okay.